Are you admitting people or do I need to?
I can handle it if you're good.
Okay.
I will say, you don't have to do it right now, she's about to get started, but before you get sleep, just make sure you check it, okay? Yeah, already.
Awesome. All right, well, we can go ahead and get started. Thank y'all so much for joining. My name is Celine Hamilton. I'm a campus recruiter for CGI Federal on our campus recruiting team based out of Fairfax, Virginia, which is our federal headquarters. And so I primarily focus on recruiting for interns and full-time hires, specifically for our Fairfax office. We're a global company, so we've got offices all over the place. And I primarily focus on recruiting out of VCU, JMU, and of course, Virginia Tech, so I'm always happy to be in Blacksburg. But I understand you guys have a career fair coming up, Business Horizons, and then I know the computer science fair is the week after, so this workshop is gonna be all about career fair prep. I wanna make sure you guys leave today feeling confident, feeling like you can walk into Business Horizons in Squires, feeling confident and prepared, okay? So quick agenda, and I'll just say too, if you've got questions, please let me know. If there's any questions in the chat, I'm happy to pause and answer those questions. And in the room, if you've got questions, raise your hand. We can chat through those, but certainly at the end, we can talk through any questions as well, okay? So quick agenda, we'll do a company overview, just a quick little tidbit about CGI in case you're not familiar. And then we're gonna break this down in 3 parts. So we're gonna do before the fair, so like things you should be considering and doing before Business Horizons or the computer science fair. Then we're gonna do during the fair, so things you should be thinking about doing when you're actually in Squires. And then some things to do after the fair, because that's important as well. And then we'll end with some tips and tricks. I'll have my contact information on the screen, and then we'll also get some questions answered. But like I said, if you've got questions throughout, or if there's any questions in the chat, definitely let me know, and we can get those answered during the presentation. All right, so just again, I introduced myself already, but I'm Celine. I've been with CGI for about 2.5 or so years, joined in February of 2022. I started off as a coordinator for the campus recruiting team, so doing more of the behind the scenes work, scheduling interviews, kind of those administrative tasks, and then eventually was promoted to campus recruiter. So now my job is to pretty much travel to my 3 schools, Virginia Tech, VCU, and JMU, to do events like this, do career fairs, engage with you all, and find the best of the best talent. So that's just a little bit about myself. Okay. All right, a little bit about CGI. Can I get a show of hands virtually and in person who's heard of CGI or familiar with CGI in any way? Any virtual hands? Seeing a few. Okay, cool. No hard feelings. You've never heard of this before. All good. But this is just a little bit about us. So we are a global IT and business consulting firm. We've got offices all over the place. We have about 90,000 members, and that number is actively growing. We work with our clients side by side in about 10 different industries. So we do a lot of work in the commercial space with different companies, but we do a lot of work in the federal space as well. And that's kind of how our company is set up. We've got our commercial state government side, but then we also have our federal side, known as CGI Federal. And we work with different government agencies like Department of State, Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, all of those big government agencies you guys have heard of before. So that's just a quick snapshot about CGI. I don't want to harp on this too much, because I really want to get into the meat of today's presentation, which is to prep you guys for the career fair. Actually, just kidding. Jobs that we offer. I'm sure you guys are wondering what types of opportunities we offer. So this is just a quick snapshot of what that looks like. All of these jobs are posted on our early careers website. Our applications are open. But we do have a good mix of both functional and technical opportunities, full-time and interns, okay? Those that are looking for an internship, gotta be a freshman, sophomore, or junior. And then seniors, you're gonna be eligible for our full-time opportunities, okay? So if you're looking for more of a functional role, it's gonna be a business analyst, but as you can see, we've got a bunch of some technical opportunities as well, some mixed roles like a technical analyst, cyber analyst, software developer, and cybersecurity engineer. And then we've got our summer internship program. It's 10 weeks paid. It's a great opportunity to get some real world experience. We've got business analyst intern roles, cybersecurity, and software developer intern roles as well. Okay, and all of these jobs can be found on our website with the full job description. And our application dates, like I said, our applications are live. They will be open through November 11th, 2024. We do get quite a few applications. It is a competitive opportunity, but I recommend that you apply early, sooner rather than later. We do have a spring application period as well, but those will be posted as needed. So I will say for my location, Fairfax, we typically don't repost our jobs in the spring because we get enough applications in the fall. But some locations that may still have opportunities left or jobs to fill will reopen their applications, okay? But regardless, the earlier you apply, the better. And of course, meet us in person, meet us at the fair, different things like that, okay? So I think that's it on CGI stuff. So, getting into the career fair prep, I wanted to start with some myths, okay? Let's debunk some myths. So number one, the first myth that I've heard a few times from students is all I need to do is show up the day of the event. And while that is important, you do need to be physically present at the fair in order for this to work. The preparation you do before the fair and the follow-up you do after is important. I recommend that you all take a look at that list of all the companies that are going to be there. Maybe pick your top 4 or 5 and research the companies beforehand. So that way you can walk up to the booth already confident, already knowing what the company does, already knowing what they have to offer. So you can talk about why you may be a good fit for that opportunity, okay? And then that follow-up is essential as well. I could easily walk away from a career fair with 200 plus resumes, not gonna remember everybody, so the follow-up, the email, or even just meeting a recruiter at a different event when they're gonna be back on campus is essential, okay? Second myth, I should go to the career fair only if I'm looking for a full-time job or internship. I recognize that is why most of you are probably gonna be at the fair. But it's also important to start building your network early. This can help you make those early contacts, establish relationships for the future. I saw a lot of freshmen at the resume reviews today, which made me smile, but you know, it's never too early to start building your network, whether you're looking for a job or not, okay? And then I left the I off the it's, that's my bad, but it's okay to show up to the fair.
I mean, 40 points. 20 points.
I did accidentally. Okay. It's okay to show up to the fair in jeans and a t-shirt, even if it's virtual. I think we all know that this is a myth. Reality is you need to be professional. This is the first impression that you're making. To the recruiter, the company, you may see some of the recruiters or the employers that do have on more casual clothing, but to be safe, you know, just put on that business casual, business professional, wear comfortable shoes because you're probably going to be standing and walking for a while as well. But you definitely want to dress appropriately. This is your first impression with that employer, essentially. Okay, so those are a few myths and the reality. Let's talk about what you should do for the fair. Okay. All right, a few things to think about. Number one, network. Who's been to business rises before? Who's experienced that? So y'all know it's busy. The lines are long, and you probably only have all of like 5 minutes to talk to the recruiter, which is basically nothing, right? So take advantage of opportunities like this, opportunities to meet with a recruiter before the fair in a smaller setting, any of those pre-fair events or the prepare for the fair days like Pamela did today, doing resume reviews downstairs. Any opportunity where you can meet with the employer in a smaller, more intimate setting is going to be helpful in them remembering who you are, as opposed to hoping that they remember you out of 200 people that they meet at their career fair. Okay. We'll break down research companies a little bit more on one of the later slides, but definitely do your research. I wouldn't recommend just walking in there blind. So hopefully you have access to a list of all the companies that will be there. There's going to be a lot. So you have a lot of options, a lot to choose from. I recommend picking like 4, just because you're probably not going to have time to visit all of them, but pick your top 4, do your research, learn about the companies that are attending the fair, but also tailor your conversations and your resume to those companies, right? Look up what the company does, the industry that they're in, the roles that they have to offer. All of those things are going to help you tailor your conversation and also just feel prepared, okay? Elevator pitch. We'll talk more about this later in the presentation as well. But this is a great way to start a conversation. Again, you're only gonna have like 5 or so minutes, depending on how long the line is, to talk to the recruiter, whoever the member of the company is, okay? So this is your introduction when you're meeting the company. It's gonna allow you to make a strong impression. But like I said, we'll break down kind of what an elevator pitch looks like later in the presentation. Update your resume. I think this goes without saying. I was doing a ton of resume reviews earlier, but make sure your resume is updated, it's current, it's polished, it's organized, clear, concise. You don't want to see some crazy fonts and random colors. Make it organized. The recruiter's probably only gonna look at your resume for like 10 to 15 seconds. They're gonna do a quick scan and then they're gonna want to get right into the conversation. So make sure it's easy to read, and it's tailored to the types of roles that you're interested in, right? So if you're interested in software development, your resume should be tailored to that, okay? And then pre-register. I know some universities require the students to register for the fair, and if you don't register for the fair, you cannot attend. Don't know if that's the case for Pamplin and Business Horizons. It is, okay. So make sure you pre-register. I imagine it's probably really easy, but don't let that be the reason why you can't go to the fair, okay? And again, if there's questions, please feel free to raise your hand or come off mute or in the room as well. So let's talk a little bit more about researching your employers and developing your goals based on that, okay? Research the employers that are attending the fair, like I said before, get that list. I think Hannah just dropped it in the chat. But review the list of employers, pick your top 4 or 5, okay? Know what the employer does, the product services they provide. Are they real estate? Do they do consulting? Are they an accounting firm? Like, get a sense for what the company does, right? Not saying you need to memorize the entire website, not saying you need to be an expert on what the company does, but you want to walk up to the booth feeling like confident that you know, that you can speak on what this company does, right? Determine why the organization interests you. So I definitely encourage you to explore the website, or if you have the opportunity to talk to someone before the fair, that works for that company or has worked there, and you can kind of pick their brain on why they've stayed, why they're there, why they chose to work there. That's gonna help you kind of pick out that why, or why the organization interests you. And then look at the positions that the organization is hiring for. That's really important. You obviously only want to look at organizations that have opportunities that align with what you're interested in, okay? So research the company, understand what they do, and get a good understanding of the positions that they're hiring for. This is gonna help you feel confident when you walk up to the booth, so you can just get right to the meat of the conversation. One thing I will say as a recruiter, I'm always happy to give my spiel about CGI and what we do. But it's nice when the student can come up to the booth and just say, hey, I'm very familiar with your company. I know you guys do X, Y, and Z. I saw you were looking for a software developer intern. I'd love to talk with you more about how, you know, I align with that role or something like that. If we can just bypass the about CGI stuff and just get right into you and why you're a good fit, we're off to a great start, okay? So then understanding your goals for attending the fair. Are you looking for a full-time role? Do you want a relationship with the employers? Are you looking for an internship? Just going into the fair, knowing what you're looking for. That's gonna kind of be a part of your elevator pitch too. And identify your skills and opportunities that match them. And this kind of goes back to tailoring the conversation. So if this company is looking for someone that's got strong communication skills, enjoys working in a team, has strong problem-solving skills, you should be mentioning those skills during your conversation. If the other company is looking for someone who can work independently, amongst other skills, those are the types of things you should be mentioning, okay? And all of that goes into preparation. You're not gonna know to talk about those things unless you take the time to prep and consider these things before you go to the fair, okay? And it says create a top 10 list of employers you would like to speak to. I would really say 4 or 5. If you have the time to visit more afterwards, great, but make sure you're at least able to visit the ones that are like your top 4. I would be upset if I don't get to speak to them type of stuff, okay? All right, elevator pitch. Who's heard of an elevator pitch? Hopefully everybody. Did anybody have an elevator pitch? Or feel confident in their elevator pitch? Okay. Well, I definitely recommend having an elevator pitch. Like I said, you're only gonna have about 5 or so minutes when you get to the career fair to impress the recruiter or whoever you're speaking to and stand out. And so having that prepared, having it in your back pocket is gonna be helpful. Or if you're just unsure of like what to say or how to start the conversation when you walk up to the booth, your elevator pitch, having that ready is great. And the recruiter's gonna more likely expect that you're gonna get right into your elevator pitch, so I promise it's not gonna be weird or awkward or anything like that, okay? So breaking down what an elevator pitch contains, right? You're gonna start with your introduction, name, major, graduation date, and the goal, right? My name is Celine Hamilton. I'm a sociology major, graduating in May of 2025. I'm currently looking for a full-time position in human resources or recruiting or something like that, okay? So that's gonna be your first sentence or two, okay? Your selling points, top skills, interests. Think about those things that you want the recruiter to know about you. I want you to know that I have this skill. I want you to know that I'm proficient in this language. I want you to know that I have this interest. Or maybe you have a really big accomplishment that you want to make sure they know. Or maybe there was a class project you worked on that you're like, I need you to know this and I'm not gonna walk away from the booth until you know it, right? So pick out like 1 or 2 things that you want to make sure the recruiter knows about you. So if that was through an internship that you had previously in the summer, we learned about different languages or frameworks or, you know, whatever the case. Figure out what those top skills and leadership accomplishments are. And then from there is your closing, your objective and your closing question. So based on everything I said, you know, I'm hoping to use the skills or build upon the skills, like it says on the example that I've learned in my internship and my classes and put that into an entry-level role or another internship with your organization specifically, right? And then you want to end with a question so we can make that a conversation, the recruiter responds, right? So can you tell me more about how your new hires are involved in project management activities? That's just an example, okay? So your elevator pitch is not meant to be long, right? Think about if you were walking into an elevator, like a physical elevator, and the CEO of Google or something was in the elevator, and you have the amount of time it's gonna take you to get from the bottom floor to the top floor is how much time you have to do your elevator pitch. So it doesn't have to be like at the speed of lightning, right? But just remember, you've got about 45, 60 seconds at the most to do that elevator pitch and then get right into the conversation, okay? Any questions about elevator pitches? I'm gonna pause there. Anyone online, anyone virtual? No questions, okay. Yes,
How important is like leadership accomplishments?
I'd say they're pretty important. If you are a part of any clubs, organizations, you're the president, vice president, finance chair, historian, if you hold a leadership role in some way, shape, or form, that's definitely gonna stand out, and I would put that in your elevator pitch, your resume, in the conversation with the recruiter. If you did a project in school and you were like the project manager or the team lead, all of that stuff is gonna stand out. Most companies are looking for those like natural leaders, so.
It's because I transferred here from like a different college, like George Mason, last year, so I didn't really have, you know, any opportunity to become a leadership, in any leadership positions yet at Virginia Tech. So can I include stuff from like high school or, you know, maybe like a nonprofit that I ran, like way back when?
What year are you in?
I'm a junior right now.
So the high school experiences, now that you're a junior, I would say no. The farther along you get in your college matriculation, you wanna kind of leave off the high school stuff. But you said the volunteer work
Yeah.
or nonprofit stuff you did, was that more recent?
Yeah.
Or, then yeah, I would definitely say that. If you led the project, planned and executed, whatever the case, that's still gonna show leadership, it's gonna show initiative. And a lot of companies really value giving back to the community as well, so showing that you're active in your community, you value volunteer work, that's also gonna be a plus. So. I think you already have it.
I think you picture.
Yeah, absolutely, if y'all wanna take your phones out, take a picture. Yeah.
How specific should we get? So for example, I'm
Take your
like,
phones out.
I'm going for a software developer engineering like job full time. And let's say I have different internships and stuff like that, should I mention what languages I used like immediately, or should I just mention what I did more than just the languages that I used?
In the elevator pitch?
Yeah,
I think you can do both, you know, you
Okay.
can say I utilized Python and Java to accomplish X, Y, and Z tasks. So if there's like certain languages that you wanna make sure they know that you've worked with and interacted with before, especially if it's like on their job description,
Mhm.
then I would say you can definitely do both. Yeah, good question.
So we have a question from the chat.
Sure.
Should you jump right into the elevator pitch or have some small talk first?
I think it's okay to do both. If you wanna walk up to the booth and just say, hi, how are you? Kind of do that kind of small talk, and then get into your elevator pitch, that's fine. Or if you just wanna get right into it, because again, you're only gonna have 4 or 5 minutes to have that conversation. I think it may sound more natural if you have the small talk first. Hi, how are you? How's your day? I'd love to tell you a little bit about myself. Boom, elevator pitch. So I would say, just to make it sound a little bit more natural, maybe the small talk first. And I'll say this too, don't feel like you need to like memorize your elevator pitch, because then you're gonna start sounding a little rehearsed, a little robotic, and you wanna come off as authentic and genuine and as yourself as possible. And I know it's nerve-wracking, like, I've been on this side before, so I know it's nerve-wracking to stand up there and go through your elevator pitch, but don't feel like you need to memorize it, just pick out your key points. I know I wanna talk about this, I know I'm gonna start with this, and I'm gonna end with this, and kind of use that to guide you through your first 3 minutes of the conversation, okay? Any more questions, or anything in the chat?
No, we're good. to chat.
Can they hear the questions that are being asked in the room? Or need to repeat it?
It should be, yeah,
Okay.
but if you wanna repeat it, that might be good.
Okay, I just thought about that. Okay. All right, so resume, who has a resume? Everybody, please. Okay, cool. Definitely show up to the fair with a resume. Even if you are a freshman, I had a lot of freshmen stop by my booth today when we were doing resume reviews. You still have stuff to talk about and show for that you could put on your resume. So let's polish your resume before business horizons. Make sure it's clear, concise, reader friendly. Don't let us see any of those silly errors, so make sure, you look over it first. Have someone else review it. But again, your resume doesn't need to be a bunch of, random fonts, a bunch of crazy colors, black and white, or any just dark shaded colors. But you don't want it to be super hard to read because the recruiter's only gonna look at it for so long, okay? Tailor your resume. This is super important. Highlight relevant courses and experiences. Tailor your resume to the position in the company that you're applying to. So if that means that you have 5 different resumes walking into Business Horizons and you're gonna give this resume to X company and this resume to A company because what they're looking for is so vastly different, do that, okay? Totally fine. That's gonna help your resume stand out, okay? Keep your resume to 1 page. It'll help support the conversation. Definitely don't need to see 2, 3, 4-page resumes. If it goes onto the 2nd page a little bit, okay, I'll give you a pass, but at the very least, make sure whatever's on that 1st page is what you want the recruiter to see. Don't put your biggest accomplishment and a certification and a skill that you're super proud of on the 2nd page, because the chance the recruiter may not even get there. So if you do get to that 2nd page, at least make sure the relevant stuff, the important stuff that you want the recruiter to see is on that 1st page, but one page is 100% preferred, okay? Have someone review your resume, a peer, a friend, a teammate, someone in career services, employer-led resume sessions, like I was doing resume reviews today. Have someone look at your resume. It doesn't hurt to get a 2nd or 3rd eye on it, so they can tell you if it's easy to read, does it make sense, is it need to be tweaked a little bit, doesn't hurt to get a 2nd opinion, okay? And then bring copies of, if the career fair is in person. So this is kind of dependent on how many booths you intend to visit, but I would say, think about how many resumes you think you're gonna need, and then bring more. If you end up not passing them all out, okay, no big deal. But you don't wanna be in that position where you get to the booth and you're like, I only have 1 more resume left, or I don't have any more resumes, okay? Also be mindful that most of the booths will have multiple representatives, so if you want each person to have a resume, be mindful of that too, okay? So basically print a lot of copies, all right? Okay, so we talked about before the fair, let's talk about during the fair. Go early. For those of you that have been to Business Horizons, you know the lines are long. You're going to be standing and waiting for a while. So if you can get there early, definitely do that. So that way you are able to talk to all the companies that you want to talk to. But I get it, class, work, other prior engagements, you may not be able to get there right at 10 a.m. But if you're able to get there early, please do that, okay? Be yourself, be professional. It's important to be authentic, so kind of like how I was saying with the elevator pitches, don't feel like you need to memorize them. Don't feel like you need to walk up to the booth with a fully memorized script, because then you're gonna come off a little rehearsed, and not as authentic as you wanna be. Okay, let your personality shine through. You wanna know who you are beyond the resume. Request contact information. Do not leave that booth without a LinkedIn, an email, a business card, something, okay? Because the follow-up after is important. Everybody's different as far as what type of contact information they're comfortable giving out. I don't mind giving out my email, but some recruiters might be like, LinkedIn, or whatever their preferred method of communication is. But at least ask, so that way you can stay in touch with them in the future. And revisit the booths. If there's time, don't be afraid to go back to the booths you already went to, just to circle back and be like, hey, remember me, just want to reinforce my interests, whatever the case. You may get an opportunity to speak to a different rep than before. I know for CGI, we're gonna have 2 booths. We're probably gonna have about 8 people standing there, so you're not gonna get to talk to everybody. But maybe if you come to the booth once, and if there's time, and you circle back around, you may get to talk to somebody different, okay? And again, please stop me if you have questions. Yes. Go ahead.
So if you have 8 different representatives at the booth, how do you guys go about like deciding who you guys want to give offers to? Is it like everyone to themselves, or is it a collective discussion at the end, or?
It's usually a collective discussion afterwards. We're not deciding necessarily who's getting an offer.
Like next?
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, it's not gonna, well, we are gonna be signing people up for interviews, for example. So that'll just, we kind of have like a scale and a system on how we assess students based on what we're looking for. And all of our reps are trained the same, so we all know to look for the same things. But there's definitely additional conversations afterwards, because the on-campus interview days is the only days that we'll be interviewing. We'll be doing virtual interview days as well, so there's gonna be opportunities. If we didn't identify someone to interview at the fair, when we have that after discussion, we may be able to identify more. But yeah, all of the reps are going in with the same understanding of like what we're looking for across the board.
And they're not all recruiters, right? Some are like,
Correct. I'll be the only recruiter. I can't speak for every company that's gonna be there. But I'll be the only recruiter there. Everyone else is working in like an actual consultant role. So the roles that y'all are gonna be applying for, if you apply to CGI, they're the ones working in it. And so, I know a lot of times it's like, the recruiter's the one making the decision. I wanna talk to that person, but I would still recommend talking to the other reps as well, because I can only speak to the roles so much. I've never been a business analyst. I've never been a cyber engineer. But the people that are with me, they've worked in those roles. They've worked with the clients. They have that experience. So if you're looking to learn more from that perspective, I would recommend talking to, the other reps as well, but feel free to talk to me too. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything in the chat? Okay. All right, after the fair, there we go. So I'm gonna keep saying this, the follow-up is so crucial. Most companies are going to leave that fair with 200 so plus resumes. We are not gonna remember every single person that we spoke to. If you follow up with the recruiter, that's gonna help them remember you, but it's also gonna reinforce your interest, right? Literally before you go to the fair, draft up an email, get the contact information at the fair, go home, maybe tailor it a little bit, tweak it so that it's a little bit more personal to the person, but then hit send, right? It's, going back to that prep before the fair. But the follow-up is so important, okay? Also, if the recruiter's gonna be back on campus or the company's gonna be back on campus, that can be a follow-up too. Just coming to if they're doing a networking night, or they're doing a meet and greet, or they're hosting a session on a particular topic. Make it a point to go if you're genuinely interested. It's gonna reinforce your interest and it's gonna make them hopefully, remember you, okay? Follow up with the hiring manager. So this is gonna be case by case. Some companies will have like the actual hiring manager present, some companies won't. But nonetheless, the key word is, the word of the day is follow up, okay? And then apply for the role. We need to have your information in our system. So if you haven't already, apply for the roles that interest you. I think it's great to apply for the role before the fair, so that way you can walk up and say, I've already applied. I'd like to talk more about why I think I'm a good fit. But I also understand that you maybe want to go to the fair first and have some conversations before you make the decision to apply. But also understand the earlier you can get that application submitted, the better, okay? Connect on LinkedIn. Every employer that's there will probably be on LinkedIn. So definitely feel free to connect or ask if it's okay that you connect. This is a great way to just maintain the relationship, keep the connection. And then determine your availability for the upcoming weeks in case they want to schedule an interview. I will also say too, to kind of go off of this, make sure you have an email address on your resume, okay? Because if the recruiter is interested and they would like to keep in touch or follow up with you, they're gonna need a way to get in touch with you. But make sure that email is an address that you actively check. I can't tell you how many times I've followed up with students, 2, 3, 4 times. They don't respond, okay, I just have to move on, okay? So definitely just be checking your email in the coming weeks after the fair, but make sure the email address that you have on there is something you plan to check, okay? Okay, and then just some key takeaways. This is kind of gonna summarize everything we've talked about. But number one, start from the bottom of your employer list and work your way up to allow yourself to warm up and settle into the process. So when I say work from your way up or bottom of the employer list, so if you got them ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, start with number 4, just to kind of settle yourself into the process, ease those nerves or anxieties. Or if you want to start at the top, that's fine. But I understand it could be extremely nerve-wracking and a little frightening walking into the fair. So maybe start with the one that you're like, isn't necessarily your dream company, just to ease into it and then work your way up to the big one, okay? Take breaks to collect yourself. I may need to do this myself, hopefully, but drink water, eat a snack, look over your notes. Marathon, not a sprint. Like I said before, business horizons is packed. Lines are gonna be long. Get a little stuffy in there, so you need to take a break. Don't lock your knees, bend your knees when you're standing in line. Please do that. Take care of yourself. And, look over your notes when you're standing in line waiting to talk to the career fair rep. Don't be afraid to speak to companies not on your list. This is okay too. Some of the companies are gonna have a really long line. Some may not have the longest line. If you just so happen to walk by a booth that's empty, might as well talk to the company, get to know them, expand your network. You might end up finding an opportunity that you didn't realize you were interested in, okay? Have a memorable interest or hobby. So, we want to get to know you beyond the resume. So this is really going to help you stand out. Tell the recruiter something that's unique and appropriate, right? So they remember who you are after speaking with over 100 students. Even if you're not looking for a job, which I think most of you probably are, internship, full-time role, still go. It's great practice. It's great practice for public speaking, strengthening your communication skills, just making you feel more comfortable in those kind of open forum networking types of environments, right? But it's also a great way to just start building your relationships, building those connections. Don't be shy and don't be afraid to mess up. We all know that you're students. We all know that you're nervous. I've been where you guys are before. So if you mess up or you need to just pause or you need to start over, please do that. We will understand. That's not going to hinder the possibility of you, getting an interview or something like that. Okay. Ask the recruiters for feedback on your resume or your elevator pitch. That's fine as well. Most will be happy to provide some quick notes. I know that I am. I've had students come to the booth and say, hey, do you mind telling me if my resume looks okay? Are there any areas of improvement? How did my elevator pitch sound? I'm happy to give that feedback right on the spot. Okay. And last but not least, see if you know anyone that works at the organizations you're interested in. That's how you're really gonna get to know if this is a company you wanna work for. If you know someone that recently graduated from tech that's working at the company, or you just have a best friend or family friend, your best friend's mom, whatever. If you know someone that works at that company, ask about their experience. If they've been there for a long time, ask them why they stayed, ask them if there's anything they would change, like try to get the real information about the company, because that's gonna help you decide if it's something you wanna pursue for the future, okay? That's it for me. This is my contact information. You guys are more than welcome to use it. Please take it down, take a picture. I will respond if you email me, so if you want me to look at your resume before the fair, feel free to send it. If you wanna just reach out, you have a question about a role we're hiring for, I will respond. It'll take me like 2 to 3 days, because my inbox tends to get a little full. Just give me some grace, but I promise I will respond. If I don't, just send me another email, okay? Any questions about career fair prep? Anything in the chat? Okay. Anything in the room?
Oh, actually, I lied, there's
Yeah.
one. Should we only hand our resumes to recruiters at the booth, or should we hand it to anyone at the booth?
Hand it to anyone. So like, for example, CGI, we're gonna have about 8 people at the booth. Whoever you end up talking to, hand it to that person. It will get back to me if that was at all the concern. But yeah, it can go to the recruiter, the non-recruiter, whoever you talk to, but make sure someone from the company gets it, 100%.
Do you know if there's any more like in-person resume reviews before the business horizons, or is that over?
I ended at 3 today, but there are other options for you, so
Yeah.
you can email our office at Career Services, and we'll
Okay.
try our best to get to it before Business Horizons, just put resume review in the subject line, or Career and Professional Development does resume review appointments.
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, you can send me your resume. I'm
Or
happy
it's
to
just late, that's
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Like, I'm more than happy to review it. I'm sure you guys get tons of resumes every day to review, so if I can take the load off y'all, I'm happy to do so. But yeah, happy to review a resume. Any other questions?
We had another one from the chat.
Sure.
What is the biggest mistake you've seen or funny story you've seen as a fair as a recruiter?
I get this question all the time. I don't have a crazy story to tell. I feel so bad. Like,
I feel like it's a good thing.
it is a good thing, and I think it's because I just grew out of amazing universities and the students are just so well prepared. No, seriously, I'm not being sarcastic. Funny story or biggest mistake? Okay, so there was one student who confused us with like the other CGI that does like the imagery with the movies and stuff like that. And so when we were having the conversation, he was thinking I was with that company. And so when we actually started talking about consulting related stuff, he was like, wait, what? And I was like, okay. So I would say that's probably the funniest story or biggest mistake, is just coming to the booth and not being familiar with the company that you're talking to. So yeah, that was kind of awkward. Definitely do some research. There are some companies that have similar names or the same name as another company, so make sure you differentiate the two for the career fair, but I would say that, yeah, and that just goes back to research, like we talked about.
There's one more from the chat.
Sure.
Should they include unrelated work experience on the resume if they do not have any relevant work experiences yet?
Unrelated work experience, so like, you know, like a cashier or something like that. I think that that's fine. Those can still highlight soft skills that you have, whether it's communication, or you provided customer service, or you collaborated and worked in a team, or you managed your time, or, you know, you were a leader amongst your team. So even if it's unrelated, it's okay. But definitely try to get creative. Like if you've worked on projects in school, and the project itself is a little bit more relevant to the types of roles you're looking to, use those. Or, you know, if you're in a club like BIT club or CS careers at VT, like those academic clubs, those are definitely gonna be helpful and relevant to some of the roles you may be interested in. But to answer the question, yes, it's totally fine to put unrelated stuff on the resume, as long as you're able to word it in a way that highlights those soft skills that the company might be looking for. Yeah. Any other questions? These are great questions, guys. Nothing in the chat? All right, well, thank y'all so much for joining. I appreciate you coming. Like I said, I will be at Business Horizons, 10 a.m. next Wednesday for day one. So definitely stop by the booth, get there early. But if you have questions or need to contact me beforehand, my email's on the screen. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Everyone who's in here, just make sure you sign in with your BT email before you leave, and there's also Business Horizons flyer